everyone for joining this afternoon session. I know it's weekend and all of you are kind of busy with your own schedules and vacation time being planned. So anyway, thanks for that. So I'll just begin myself by giving a short intro. I've worked for 15 years in the content domain, primarily across a lot of IT product companies and services organizations. But I started off my career in the publication industry. This was way back in 2003 and 2004 in Bombay. So after which I moved back to Chennai, and I started off my technical writing field career in this company by the name Collabnet. It was an open source product company, and after that I was mainly working in Cognizant for 12.5 years. That was again a services industry, like you know. So we basically had to cater to multiple customers and requirements. So my career in technical writing as a whole was like 14 years, and during this time I have worked in various kind of roles and leadership roles. So when it came to technical writing, when it comes to Microsoft Excel, that's something that I kind of loved it when it came. That was probably way back in 2012 or 13. So that's when my real love for Excel started, because of the kind of roles that I was playing and the opportunities that I got. So during the course of my stint at Cognizant is where I created all these kind of estimation frameworks and various kind of Excel sheets. So just to highlight, I'm just highlighting a few that I've probably created. I've created a little more than this, but I started off creating these projects, efforts, and cost estimation sheets because of the need that arose in Cognizant, because we were catering to various requirements and various customers, right? So having a uniform estimation framework is always key to giving back any kind of cost estimation or effort estimation within a certain turnaround time. So we had a team about close to 150 writers across the globe. So it was important that having a consistent framework was very critical at to cater to various requirements. So creating that estimation framework took me about there was an existing framework, but it was not very clean. So I had to redesign that entire framework. So that was one. And besides that, I've created various frameworks from a requirements gathering standpoint, content migration project standpoint, and of course standard the delivery module, delivery planning and scheduling. And also when I was there at Cognizant, I had also worked on something called the revenue management, because every project had a certain cost and revenue associated to it. So I had to work on that front as well. And plus the standard, task trackers, or the productivity trackers from a writer standpoint. So having said that, yeah, I've also mentored quite a few writers during my stint, and that's my LinkedIn profile and contact details. If you want to contact me over the phone or mail me, that's something I've just given here. You can probably sync up with me after this call or whenever you want to. So I've just given those details here. So that's a short intro about myself. I hope you can see my screen, everyone, so that I can just proceed to the next slide.
Yes, I can see.
Sure. Thanks, guys. So this is my agenda for today. I know it's a 2-hour session, but I'll try to be keeping it to a 1-hour session for from a theory standpoint, and maybe half an hour to 45 minutes on the practical side. So this is my overall agenda. So I would start off with technical writers versus Microsoft Excel, because this is something that I always do when I conducted training for the new joinees, and some of the key features and formulas that we would go through, because this is a need that I've seen during my time and during my career. And some of the best practices, do's and don'ts, tips and tricks uh, when you create any kind of Excel framework or spreadsheet. And obviously, I'd be doing a live sample of a very high level generic technical writing estimation framework. And besides that, I'll be sharing a few checklists and best practices. And from a leadership standpoint, why people who are growing up the ladder or who are in existing roles playing those kind of leadership roles would need to use Excel or probably even a Google sheet. So that's something I'd probably cover on during the course of my session today. Okay, so my first slide is on the writers, right? Technical writers versus Microsoft Excel. This is a very big stumble block which I've seen across writers, right? Whether it is a junior writer or even a senior writer or anyone in the managerial role, right? So the first thing I've just tried to highlight a few mindset issues that when it comes to Microsoft Excel, right? From a TW standpoint, is obviously something that a lot of writers feel that it's not just writers, right? It's many people across the globe know that Excel is more of a data entry tool, but that mindset has to probably be changing during the course of when you work with tools like Excel. For me, Excel is more of a design tool rather than a data entry tool. Okay. Now, often I come across writers who say they don't have a passion, for numbers, or they don't have a passion for anything else. If you are a technical writer, their role is only to play a writer's role or a content writing role. But that's not the case, right? Somehow I found that a lot of writers who come from arts and science or engineering background, they somehow they do have that inclination towards numbers, but they don't show it out, right? So this is some of the mindset issue that I've noticed in technical writers. They have a fear for formulas, which is obvious because we are not trained as I don't know about the current education system, but during school or colleges, we don't get to explore Excel at the level it should be taught at, right? So this is one fear I've seen across a lot of writers. They say, okay, I am not good at numbers, so I cannot do the formula part. And most 90% of the time, people say, this is not my role. This is just a waste of time, and it's just too much of micromanagement, right? So these are the typical TW mindset issues that I've seen, but I wouldn't restrict it to only technical writers. I've seen it across developers or uh, quality analysts or testers or anyone for that matter, right? So why is there a need for a technical writer to learn Microsoft Excel, even if it's not at an advanced level, but at a very basic level, right? Since I've executed a lot of large high volume projects in Cognizant, what I have observed is there is a lot of misalignment or misunderstanding of the effort estimation or the cost estimation from a overall development standpoint. But from a technical writing position, I think there is a lot of um, uh, alignment issues. So there are junior writers, there are editors, there are product engineers. So they all have their own framework within their mind. But when it comes to creating a custom framework, it's practically very challenging. So to group all these people together and bring them down to a table and say, okay, this is how I'm going to develop an estimation framework or a Excel framework for technical writing, that's very challenging, right? So the need arises there. So aligning writers, editors, the PET teams, and the management as well to come out with a consistent and streamlined framework across various DDLC stages. So that's one of the need that I have found with having Excel as a tool, and also to bridge the gap between the team that's creating the effort and the actual writers implementing the project, right? So the reason why I've highlighted this is I've come across, I've worked with a lot of projects and customers, and if you see, let's say a services industry, right, we cater to multiple domains and multiple challenging environments. So most of the time the requirements are done much upfront, whereas the team that is actually going to be executing the project, that's the delivery team, they always find that the effort that was quoted or that the effort that was being shared to the customer is extremely low, and they don't have the real time to implement this project within the next 6 hours. So that's the gap that needs to be balanced, or it has to be streamlined. So I'll take an example for myself, right? So I had worked on a couple of estimations that I'm not a couple of them, various models, and I had quoted a certain effort. But when it comes to the actual execution, when the team started doing the further deep dive analysis, they realized, okay, the effort is little too low. So that's where the whole problem comes right at the requirement stage. So that's the need for technical writers to understand why Excel is probably the first step across any content project, right? So you might be extremely good at a tool like a FrameMaker or a Madcap Flare or any documentation authoring tool. But when it comes to the base, it is always the requirements stage, right? If you get that wrong, or if you're making a blunder of the entire requirement stage, the whole project goes to probably an escalation or some kind of a deviation, right? So that's the need from a technical writing standpoint. And I just listed on a few places where Excel can be used. Uh, Probably it is right at the beginning, it's the project estimation. You can create multiple forms of delivery planning and scheduling. Uh, Content checklists, content metrics, you can use it in business operations based on the role that you're playing in the organization. You can also use it for multiple ways of documentation, mapping, right? So you have a large repository of content files and folders, and it's practically impossible to create a model for that. But in large organizations, they do have a content architecture or an information architecture. But if it comes to document mapping, you can probably use Excel. It's probably the cleanest way of doing things, right? And you can also use Excel from a content strategy standpoint. Now, content strategy is a very big term, right? Since most of you know or may not know, content strategy is a mix of uh, a lot of things, right? From the creating the architecture to the delivery model, what's the roadmap for the year. So you can use Excel right as a base, right? So that's one of the usage, and this is just not a small list that I've highlighted. There are more ways of using Excel depending on the kind of requirement that you have in your organization, or if you're a freelancer, or if you're a any form of content writing as well. So Excel is probably the base where you should probably start, and then comes your remaining documentation tools. Now, from a benefit standpoint, a lot of people feel that Excel, like I said, it's just a data entry tool, but it is more about automation. Now, the reason why I say automation is most of us like to do things manually, right? I can do a small calculation using calculator or within my brain, right? But that's not the point. Excel, it has a lot of formulas and features that you can use that I'll probably be explaining in the due course of time. Some of you may already be knowing it, but the reason for Excel is end of the day, everything should be automated. You have to give less time for writers to spend on Excel, right? It is robust, error-free, and what I have observed is when we respond to, let's say, business proposals or RFPs, the turnaround time is extremely less, right? And the same writer might not get to work on the RFP all the time. It could be distributed across, senior writers or managers who are playing that role. So to respond to RFPs also becomes more challenging. So that's where Excel comes as a first step, then the content solution, and then the overall delivery model. So the benefits of using Excel from a technical writer position is something that I would recommend every writer to begin with this tool, and then probably there's a lot of scope in terms of data analysis, and it improves your overall logical thinking, how data should flow. And people always complain saying, why is Excel being dumped on me, right, as a technical writer? But I see that as a uh, like I said, a mindset issue. So I have grown over time within Cognizant, playing different roles. Right, I have found Excel also to be one career path which you can, even if you move out of technical writing or you go into the mainstream development or any kind of role, it helps, right? It's not just restricted to technical writing. So there is a career path from technical, from Excel standpoint. You can probably become a data analyst at some point, but these are the few benefits that I have listed. So if you have any questions, you can probably feel free to stop me at any point of time, and or I can proceed on to the next slide.
Yeah, Mohan, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so over the course of time, like I said, these are some of my favorite features in Excel. I know some of you may already be knowing this. Some of you might have used this already, and it's probably be features that every Excel lover likes, right? So I've divided into 5 core features that I've used and I keep using probably day in and day out. And then I've highlighted 6 probably not so important features, but still it's good to know these features because it helps in creating the overall estimation framework or any form of framework that you're designing. So the 5 features that I personally like is the name manager, the data validation, conditional formatting, custom sorting and filters, and a pivot table. So these are some of the features that I like using, and the 6 other features, like I said, not so important, but still you have to learn these things. Is formatting of cells, how to remove duplicates, uh, using the go to special function, and error checking, and primarily also locking your cells and protecting the sheet. So I'll go through these features one by one. I'll also try to show you a generic estimation model or another sheet that I have, so that you can relate to what I'm saying. So it will be mostly like an interactive session from here on, in terms of showing you the feature and how it can be used. Okay. So name manager, right? Just to begin with. So I just I wrote a small article. I mean, a week or two ago, in terms of uh, uh, relating every feature to a scenario, right? A scenario could be a general human scenario or your day-to-day activities, right? So I just try to highlight a few, just one feature here. So although the definition of name manager is obviously available in Excel, this is just more from my, if you want to call it a creative side, but it may relate to you or not, but I'm not sure. But so when you visit a grocery store, right, your wife or your girlfriend or whoever, so they ask you to go and buy a specific type of dal, right? But you end up going like a lost child. You keep searching different counters, and you're not sure which specific car to select, right? So it's happened to probably most of us, and it will probably continue for every human across the globe, especially in India. So this is something name manager does. So what is name manager, right? So I'll open a generic estimation sheet in parallel, so that you can get a better idea. So before that, I'll just explain what are the usages and benefits, right? A name manager is basically like an array, right? In development, in coding language, they call it an array, right? So if I have to uh, uh, associate a name for a certain list of, let's say, um, values, right? I can define that a list of values against a certain unique name. So basically what happens is when I define that, it's easy to remember kind of names wherein I can use these unique names in formulas and various kind of data selection. That's more from an Excel standpoint. So basically what happens is you are reducing a lot of manual selection of values in Excel, and it improves your overall data accuracy. Now I'll just show you a very simple sheet uh, in terms of how you go about creating a name manager. This is probably a very underrated feature, at least from what I've seen. Not many people use it. People who are experienced enough, they stick to using this name manager functionality. So what is if I go to my Excel sheet, I hope everyone can see it. So if I go to the formulas tab in Excel, there is something called a name manager here, right? So now let's say from a technical writing standpoint, I'm creating an estimation framework, right? I want to decide all the doc impact, what are the values I would associate to a doc impact, what is the type of doc impact type, what is the complexity level of a task, whether it's a simple, medium, complex. So we call it the standard SMC model, right? And then what is my impact dependency, whether it is a single impact, it's a multiple impact. So let's say one screen impacts multiple other screens. So I can define all my values using this name manager functionality, right? This name manager feature. So right now, since I already have this estimation model in place, I'll just show you something that I've not yet defined, right? So for any development project, you would obviously, any software product, you will obviously have your name of the application, the module, the features, right? And you would probably, let's say, if you're going in an agile module, you'll have the sprint numbers, right? So how do I go about creating, you know, a name manager, defining that unique name for every list of values? So here, let me just zoom in here for better clarity. So it is extremely simple. It's no rocket science in this. All you need to do is go and select your list of applications. Okay, you can define the name using two ways, right? One is you define the name here. You can click this define name here. It will show up a pop-up here, and you can define your whatever unique name that you want to associate it with, right? Now ensure that you are giving a unique name that you can also remember when you are creating your data validation, or you're inserting this name in formulas, right? So it's important that you also remember this unique name, right? Now let's say I go and I type application, so I can list down all the applications in a product, and I can create a unique name for it, right? So right now I have defined it as application, just to keep it simple. Also note that when you're defining this name, do not select the first header, right? Your header should always be excluded from your uh, unique value, because it's your header name. So just try to ensure that you're starting off with row 2 or row 3 or wherever you want to define the range, and then give that unique name, right? So this is one way of doing things. The shortcut way of doing things is, let's say I go to the sprint, right? I want to associate sprint. I want to list down all the sprint names, and I want to define a name for it. So I click this, and I've already defined this. Okay, I've already defined this here. Okay, I already defined this here. Yeah. So what you can also do is, maybe I'll just show it to you here. Um, I'm just giving a just a very simple model. So I want to select the different kind of uh, development models used in software development, right? So uh, all I do is I go and select this range. I can go and click here on the left side, right? If you see this name box, I can go click here, and I can just define the name, right? So I'm just giving it SDLC model, right? Once I do that, I can go back to the name manager and see if that name has been associated, right? You will see that STLC model baseline 2, 3 that particular range has been already been defined. Okay, so this is one way of the two ways of doing things. I've just shown you a shortcut model, and I've also defined various name ranges when I show the actual estimation, right? So this is a very simple, it's a straightforward approach. I do this right at the start of every project when I'm creating a framework in Excel, just to ensure that not just me but anyone who's going to be using the framework is also understanding the need for creating this name manager, right? So what are the benefits of this, right? Like I said, it reduces manual selection when it comes to selecting a data range, and you can avoid the main benefit for me, at least from a tech writing standpoint, is you're avoiding a lot of manual changes to baseline effort, right? So if you're creating an estimation framework, each of your organizations or yourself would associate, let's say, 2 hours to a simple task, or 3 hours or 4 hours to some medium or complex task. So how do you define that baseline value, right? So that is probably decided by your team or your organization. But when you baseline that effort and you put a name to it, so that's when it becomes more easier and critical, right? So any questions on the first feature that I've shown?
I don't have any. Move on.
Okay. Okay. So I'll probably show you different features when I do the actual sheet. So the second feature that I always implement is the data validation, right? So data validation is very simple, right? I want to select a list of values from a predefined. I want to select one value from a predefined list of values. So using it's basically dependent on two things. One is either if you've already defined a name manager, and one is if you're going to select from a specific value, specific list of values that you have not defined earlier, right? So the usage is basically like a selection, but it becomes all the more critical to avoid people typing something manually and overriding, what needs to be there, right? So it's basically restricting users from selecting a specific list. It could be a value, it could be a number, it could be a date, or any kind of custom formula that you can enter, right? So basically, good guidance leads to better results. This is something I've observed, I've implemented, and technical writers actually say, okay, this is the ideal way of doing things, because if you give them the opportunity to, or anyone for that matter, to start typing something beyond a certain list of values, it becomes it leads to multiple issues when it comes to the overall estimation or the overall framework. So that's something I try to avoid, right? So data validation is probably the second feature that I'll show you where it can be used. So here, let me go to the task list, right? It's absolutely simple now. Now, let me go to this. Now here I have not defined the data validation so that I can show it to you then and there. Now application. So we have already defined the word application, sprint, module, features. Now, if you're restricting users from selecting a specific list, all you have to do is go to the data tab. I click on the data validation button, and here you will see the validation criteria. Now, here it's important to know what are you trying to restrict, whether it is a list that you have already defined, whether it is a whole number, whether it is a decimal, a list value, a date, time, text length, and also custom formulas, right? So I don't want to go too much into the custom formulas because that's a very different. It probably goes into the advanced level, but I'll probably stick to the list value for now. Now, since I've already defined those names, all I have to do is go and select the source. Now, my source in this case is application. A shortcut key that I use is clicking F3. Now, when I click F3, it shows me the list of values that I can pick from. These are the list of names that I've defined in the name manager, right? So I go and click F3 and I can see this, right? So I go and select application, right? I click here and I go click OK, right? It's that simple. I can go and select only a predefined list, nothing more than this, right? If I go and if you try to type something else, it will show you whatever the error that you want to define. So if you want to define a specific error to show up, right, you can use this input message or the error alert just to type in whatever message you want, right? So you say, in this case, select the appropriate So this is the most simplest thing anyone can do, right? It doesn't restrict to technical writer or content writer. It's across the globe. So I type this, I get this message saying, select the appropriate application. Now I do this for everything. I do this for sprint. I go and click list. I go to the source. I click F3, and I get my sprint name. Right? I go click OK. So I get my sprint names. Now I'll show you the other negative side to this. Now let's say I don't have a name manager, right? And I want to select only a specific list of modules. Now generally what people do is they go and select list, then they click on the source, then they go back to wherever they have defined that source. Let's say in our case it's the baseline sheet, and then let's say instead of selecting this, I'm selecting some other value, right? I select baseline something else, right? So I can define whichever way I want to select a certain list of values, but defining it this way leads to few complications over a period of time, because people tend to probably delete rows or delete columns, and it becomes practically a variable kind of component, right? So defining this in a specific format is the ideal approach. So in this case, I again click F3, I click on module, and I click OK, right? So I get my module, I get my features. I can define this, for whatever range I have selected. So this again is based on if you already have a predefined list of values that you are creating when you are designing that overall template or that framework, right? So it's important to have that baseline values and the baseline effort in place before you start creating the actual the selection process, right? So that's something I have always learned over the course of time, and that's why I'm showing you this step by step instruction, right? So let's say now I go to doc impact. I want to select the specific doc impact. I go and click on list, and since I've already defined it, I'm clicking doc impact. Okay, right? So I have yes or a no. Okay. Now I've added this column just to let you know that it is not restricting to only values. Let's say a technical writer is creating let's say documentation or uh, you know writing down fields, right? Let's say I'm taking instead of screens, let me put it as the page is completed, right? So you can also use data validation here to decide how many pages a writer can do, let's say in a day, or based on the task, right? So I can decide whether it's going to be a minimum of, let's say, 1 page or 20 pages or 50 pages in a day, depending on the role, right? Let's say I'm an editor. I can decide if I'm a manager and I want to observe how many pages an editor is editing in a day, and I want to define it a minimum of, let's say, not even zero, but one. One should be the minimum, and maximum should be, let's say, an editor can do 75 pages of editing, right? So that should be my threshold. If a editor is able to do more than this, well and good. You can define that value again, right? So I can define anything greater than one, right? But you obviously know an editor cannot do more than, let's say, 100 pages in a day. That's something practically impossible. But it again depends on the editor skill set. So I can define various kind of selection parameter here in terms of numbers when it comes to a whole number, and I can also decide whether it's going to be a decimal value. I can decide if it's going to be a date, right? So there are multiple selections here. This is something that you will learn over the course of time when you actually do this, when you create your model from your statement, right? So it's something that you will learn over the course of time. So I don't want to go too deep into this for now. So I'll stick to, let's say, whole number, and I'll say greater than one, or let's say between 1 to 75, right? So if I type anything beyond 75, let's say 76, I get the error. So it's as simple as this, right? So you are the ones you are the one who, if you are designing a framework, you are the one who's controlling things, right? You are not allowing writers to go beyond a certain threshold. So that's again depending on your organization, or however the way you want to design, right? So it's critical here, but again this comes through experience only. So for now, I'm just going back and I'm removing that criteria, just to give you that flexibility in terms of understanding. Okay, so I've just given a few. I've tried to, based on my experience, I've tried to map it to a few scenarios. So where do you use data validation? It's basically across a list of DDLC stages. It could be your design stage, your requirements gathering stage, your complexity level. You're assigning a certain task to a writer. So you can define data validation for each and every component of your overall, framework. And then if you look at from a web content standpoint, or if you're a content writer and there's a requirement saying, okay, you should not enter more than X number of characters in a cell or in a Word document, you can obviously use Excel to track it, right? So I can define, let's say, like I showed you in the previous example, I can decide not more than 10 characters for an SEO keyword or a metadata. So this is something, if you worked on different CMS tools, let's say Adobe Experience Manager, or HP Teamsite, or any CMS platform, you will obviously get these kind of restrictions wherein it says don't enter more than X number of characters from a web content standpoint, right? So you can decide also these things. So I've done these kind of restrictions in one of the web content projects that I have executed, and it's actually helped. Okay. So any questions on this particular feature? Okay.
Hi, I have one question.
Yeah.
I am doing this at source. I'm just clicking on this F3, but it is not showing me that window in that window that popped up in your case.
Yeah. So it's basically, have you defined that uh, have you defined that name? Have you defined that array or that range in the name manager?
No, 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 not yet. So
Yeah.
okay,
So,
okay, I need to do
so
it.
once you do that, then this is step two, right? So just think of it
All
from
right.
from a step 1, step 2 standpoint. So if you define everything clearly in your name manager, you can use data validation absolutely without any hassle.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay. So can I move on to the next slide? Okay. So let me take the next feature. This is something that most of you do on a daily basis. Even if you have trackers, if you're creating trackers for your home, you obviously want to sort things from A to Z, Z to A, whatever be that range, right? Now, what I have seen is people just stick to the standard sorting of ascending and descending, but I find that little old school. Uh, from a sorting and filtering standpoint, this is something. It's like a bread and butter for every person who's using Excel, right? So people don't use this feature called the custom sort, and they generally stick to the standard filters. But if you look at the custom sort feature that I'll be showing you little in depth, you get to define a lot of rules within custom sort. It could be across columns, it could be across a color, it could be across a font. So there are various combinations that you can use, this particular custom sort and filters. And overall, what it basically does, it improves your overall data readability, and it avoids confusion when it comes to large volume of data. Okay, so for this, I'll probably show you not an estimation model, but maybe on the financial side. Or not, I just taken a sample sheet from the website. So this is a very small sheet in terms of numbers and values, and it's got a lot of different kind of values. So, for example, it has got date, it has got month, it's got the year, it's got profits and various kind of countries and products. So I've just picked this up from the web. So it's just a raw data, but based on the volume of data that you have, I tend to use this feature called custom sort more than the actual A to Z or the Z to A format. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you. I'm just selecting this data. I have firstly you need to enable this filter at the top row. There are multiple ways of filtering also. So if you want to filter only this particular list of values, then these columns again becomes a problem, right? When you start sorting or doing any kind of filtering activities, these values again tend to get disarranged or rearranged. So it is better to always start with filtering the top row, right, based on the values that you have. Select this. Now, what do you do when it comes to filtering, right? So this is step 1. Step 2 is your custom sort. Now, in this example, I have channel partners, enterprise, government, I have countries, I have products, profits, and various other columns. Now, a simple A to Z, right? It's obviously right now sorted in A to Z. Now, if I do a simple Z to A here, it shifts from government, enterprise, channel partners, and you will notice that all the columns are automatically rearranged. Now, this is fine, right? This is basics. Now, I have seen a lot of people make the mistake of sorting only that particular column. When you have a large volume of data, it's obviously very critical that you sort the entire data, then rather than selecting only one specific or two columns. Now, the problem if I do this, it will ask me the question again whether you want to expand the selection. So it's basically giving you a warning saying, do you want to expand your selection to the entire data or only to the specific list of values, right? So in this case, let's say I click continue with the correct selection. So basically, Excel is reading your mind. It knows that you're making a mistake, so it is giving you a warning. So you go and click sort. Now what's happened is the rest of the columns are all static. It has not changed at all. So this is one issue that I have spotted. I mean, people who have used Excel for a long time know that If I do this kind of sorting, it messes up the entire data, right? So as a thumb rule, please try to ensure that when you're doing this custom sort, click on the entire range of values, click on this particular button, right? This is where you start defining a lot of rules for each and every column of your array that you want to sort, right? Now let's say, for example, I want to sort not from the segment but from the country. I want to start off my sorting from the country instead of column A, right? I can click on country and I can select the values. I can select the cell color, font color, and which order I want to sort the entire range. Okay, so now in this case I'm selecting country. Okay, to start off, I will my first array, my first sorting will be based on the country, and if after that I want to define another sorting parameter, I want to sort it by product, right? I can go and click here, product, and I can define whether I want to do A to Z, Z to A. So this again is very, very critical in terms of sorting, but overall it will not impact uh, your values across each row. This is just from a sorting standpoint. Okay, so your values still remain the same. It's not going to do any harm compared to what I showed you earlier, right? In the earlier instance, I showed you one column and it spoiled the entire data. In this, it will not do anything. It will just sort your values based on your cell value or font color or the order you want that value to be sorted. Now you take this, you compare it with the previous uh, sorting, previous data, and you will notice that nothing has changed much. Everything remains same. Nothing has changed, right? So this is one way of doing things. So I prefer, from my experience, I prefer doing the custom sort rather than selecting the entire range and doing an A to Z or Z to A, right? Now I'll just show you another example. Let's say I am selecting by product. Now I want to decide the color of let's say Germany, right? I put Germany as yellow. I put France as blue. I put Canada as let's say red. Mexico, I again want to put Mexico as red, but I'll give it maybe a different uh, color, maybe a different, harder red. And yeah, so this is pretty much what I want to do, right? And now I want to sort all this data based on the color. Okay, so I can click the data tab again. I can click sort. Now here again I go to country. I want to sort all my countries based on the color I've chosen. Okay, so I go to country. I click instead of cell values, now I select cell color. So I can decide what color I want to come, what I wanted to show it on top. So say for example, I want to show this particular red on top. Okay, and then I want to show yellow. I go and select country. I go and select cell color, and then I go and select yellow. So if I want to define the third color as blue, and then the final color as country, I'm selecting the last color. So basically what happens is I can decide whether it wants to be on top or bottom. So you can define this array very, very simply, right? There's no rocket science again in this. So let me show you the output. Now what it has done is taken Mexico right at the top, Germany, France, Canada. So it is sorted based on the country, based on the color you have decided. Okay, so it's absolutely simple in terms of how you want to sort it, but I prefer sorting it using this particular custom sort and feature. So there are multiple ways of doing this. So you can sort it based on date, year, month, whatever. But overall, why I wanted to show you this feature is a lot of people use this compared to the standard A to Z or Z to A model. Okay. So any questions here? Okay, sorry, I forgot to show you the main part of the filtering. Okay, so filter, yeah. So let me take the profit column. Obviously now I'm done with the sorting, but filtering is where you play around in terms of so here again, let me just go back to the country. I can filter based on the color that I want to see. Right, I want to see only the blue ones. I select the filter and I click on blue. If I want to select only the red ones, I select on this. So filtering gives you much more flexibility in terms of what you want to see at the end of the day. You can use text filters. You can select from different kind of parameters that show up here in this particular range. Because these are all numbers, it's all showing up in terms of number filters. So I can decide if I want to see the top 10, profits. I click that, it shows me only the top 10, right? So out of 11 values, now I'm seeing only the top 10. So there are multiple ways you just have to play around in terms of the filters that you use in terms of this particular feature. So any questions here? Okay. Yeah. So I'll take that as a no. So I think it's pretty simple and straightforward here. So I'll move on to the next feature. This is one of my favorites, and I've mentored a lot of people on this. This is something I use more than the actual three features that I've explained until now. So what is conditional formatting, right? So now I've just given a very simple description. Basically, it's like a policy, right? You cannot go beyond the policy threshold. So you are given a warning one time, two time, but if you cross that and you make a mistake, then don't come back to us, right? So basically, conditional formatting is like that. You can set multiple alerts, red flags, automatically as in when a certain condition is not met. Okay, so let's say in the data validation that I showed you, you want to define that don't go beyond simple, medium, complex. So if you try to do something new, it will show an alert, right? So this particular feature works best with numbers, text, and dates. And for me, it's been like at least in the web content project that I've executed, it's been like a, and TW of course, it's been like a boom because there are a lot of duplicates that we spot, and that's one of the biggest problems in Excel, right? When it comes to data, there's obviously going to be duplicates. So I'll show you very simple uh, sheet. Anyway, I'm just using the same sheet for now. Now, how do I implement conditional formatting? So conditional formatting is available here in the Home tab itself. You click on Home, Conditional Formatting, and you will see a list of multiple criteria or rules that you can decide. Now, this is extremely useful when you know how to create, you want to define a formula, a custom formula. But for now, I'm just showing you the most basics that's available in Excel. You can highlight cells that's greater than whatever. Say, for example, I take the profit column, I select greater than 50,000, right? Or let's say 5,000, 10,000 now. Okay. So if you notice, I have given a criteria saying show me all the values that is beyond $10,000, right? And I want to mark it in a specific color. By default, it will show you this red fill, but you can decide which color you want to associate or show the specific values using a separate color. So for now, I'm just selecting green. Okay, so if you notice, always try to not pick the header row because I don't know, for some reason it's showing profit and it's also met the criteria of exceeding 10,000, but I think that's a flaw. So maybe there's something wrong. So I can go and clear the rules from the selected cell. So that's something you should do. So now I go and select this. Again, I select, let's say 15,000 for now, and I select green. Okay. So basically, it shows me all the profits that is greater than 15,000. Okay. From here on, if I can do my sorting. If I want to sort it by only the top, beyond 15,000, I can do that. Okay. But for me, the main functionality from conditional formatting is eliminating duplicates. Now, how do I do that? Here, for example, I have segment, I have government, channel partners, enterprise, whatever. I go and click on highlight cell rules. I go and click on duplicate values. Now you'll notice that everything has a duplicate. Anything more than one in terms of a value it will show it as a duplicate. Now the problem statement comes only when, even if there is a small space. Okay, I'll just show it to you. Now right now I'm just putting and inserting a space. Okay, you will notice that this is no longer a duplicate. It looks like a unique value. Right now it looks very similar, but it is actually the same. Now government, it shows 3 duplicates, but there is this value that it is showing as unique. So that should not be the case, right? So it is always important that you notice these kind of things, and you also insert a conditional formatting on the same column or array and say duplicate. Here, instead of duplicate, you go and click on unique. Okay. Now when you click on unique, you decide a different color. For example, I'm selecting yellow. Okay. Now it is showing you that government is a unique value. It is not showing as a duplicate compared to the previous 3 values. So the problem is, even a small space in between will lead to complications when it comes to a large volume of data. Okay. So this is where manual formulas come in. So I'll show you a very simple formula. I think most of you might know it. It's called the length formula, right? I click on equal to, I click on length, and it will show me the number of characters in every cell, right? So I go click on A2. Right now it's showing 16, 16, 16. I drag this. Only for government, it is showing 10 at the top and 11 at the bottom. So this is a shortcut to figure out, okay, why is my value still showing as unique even though it looks similar to the previous value. So it's important that you understand this from also technical or a web content standpoint, but because these things will keep coming. Okay. There are various conditional formatting rules that you can define. It's something that you will learn over the course of time. But for now, I've just shown you a duplicate. Maybe I'll just show you another example. There is something called okay, let me take a date range, for example. So I have 2014, I have 2013. Now I can decide which list of values I want to see. It could be sorry, not this. Yeah. So if you want to see a specific range of dates between, let's say, August 2013 and 14, I can go and select the between highlight formatting cells between so and so range. So I can decide the date here. So right now it's automatically showing 31/12/2013 and 7/2/2014. So I can do these kind of combinations or rules. But the real implementation of conditional formatting is, if you are skilled enough with formulas, you can decide using this new formatting rule. So this is extremely useful provided you are comfortable with formulas and you understand how you want to see data and how you can decide a certain formula to go in a specific range of values. So this becomes very a little advanced level. But if you feel that you want me to show it here, I can do so. So let me show you an example. It's a very simple formula that I'll show it to you here. Mm, okay, let me show you a very simple formula. It's called the weekday. Okay. Now, generally, most of us work, the standard 5 days in a week. Now, let's say I want to highlight only the weekdays, right? Based on your calendar year. So I'm just going and clicking this, and typing this formula. I type weekday, and I select the first value in that date column. So it's a very simple formula. I'll just, if I want to highlight all the weekdays in a specific date column, I'm just selecting gray or green for now, or it can even be holidays. So right now it is not showing you because most of these fall on a weekday. Okay, or maybe it not. So it's showing. Okay, maybe I'll show it to you in some other sequence. So for now, this is from a conditional formatting standpoint. There are multiple rules that you can set, provided you know what you want to see and you want to show to your management or your boss in terms of data, right? So this becomes very critical from a conditional formatting standpoint. So if you have any questions on this, maybe just feel free to ask me right now. I know Excel can get little intimidating at the start if you're not used to Excel, but over the course of time, these things will definitely matter when you're creating different kind of frameworks. Okay. Any questions right now? Okay, so let me go on to one of my most favorite features that I've used across a period of time. So this is your pivot, right? Pivot tables and charts. So this is probably one of the most underrated features that a lot of people don't use in Excel. It can be used across a lot of data. Basically, it is like a summary in terms of how you want to see data. You can show it as a report, you can show it as a chart format. So basically, end of the day, it is as long as your data, your source is correct, it is accurate. Pivot tables will show you all this data in a very compact and crystal clear form of summary. End of the day, you can also use this data to create your pivot charts that I'll probably show it to you. But how this helps you from a technical writing standpoint? Now, once you create your overall framework, you can use a pivot. You can find out what is my overall requirements gathering effort, my actual content development effort, my delivery effort from a review standpoint, how much effort have I assigned to project management, contingency, everything can be summarized in one shot. End of the day, it's not just from an estimation standpoint, but you can also use this for, let's say, generating content metrics or the pages that your team has created over let's say 1 month or over a quarter, or how many pages is actually impacted in your product development life cycle. So all those things, right? End of the day, it gives you that decision. It gives you that flexibility of how you want to project this data to, let's say, a management. And you can also convince clients saying, okay, there are out of 10,000 pages that you have in your user manuals, only 1,000 pages are impacted, right? So what happens to the 9,000? So you can show these kind of metrics, and you can also help customers, take that decision on what to do from a maintenance standpoint. So this is where pivot table, comes extremely handy. So I'll show you a very simple example now that you're kind of clear with conditional formatting. I'm just going to eliminate all the rules, but there's no hard and fast rule. I'll still retain this. Now, to go to the pivot table feature, all you have to do is first select your data, right? Go and click on insert and click this pivot table, right? It's as simple as this. You click on pivot table, it will ask you where do you want to define, where do you want to create this pivot, whether it's going to be in the same worksheet or a new worksheet, right? So you can click on new, preferably click on new worksheet just to avoid any confusion, right? Click on new worksheet. So basically what it shows you here is a snapshot. It's like right now it's not showing you any data, but you will see the fields on the right side. Pivot table, there's something called a pivot table fields. You can decide how you want to see your data in a very clear and concise manner. Okay. Now let's say, for example, I want to see all the country, or I want to see the profit of all the countries that's listed in the previous tab, right? So I go and click on country. So it first shows me the list of countries. Okay. Now I want to see the profit. I click on profit. Bang! It shows me the profit of all these 4 countries. Okay. Now, if I further want to go in terms of classification or segmentation, if I want to see the products per country and its corresponding profit, I click on product. Now, if you see under country, I have my products and the corresponding profit. Okay, this is extremely simple from just think it from a summary standpoint, right? I want to say everything in a very compact and in a nutshell manner. So this is the way to go about things, right? I can further, if I want to change the view of how I want to see, let's say I want to see the products on the right side, let's say on the column front. Okay, so I move this product to the column, and here I can see all my products and the appropriate countries and the corresponding profits, right? So it's as simple as this. So basically, if you want to do any sheet that you're working on, go to the pivot table towards the end, and you can use this feature to drive that entire metrics in terms of numbers or in terms of any other kind of form of data, right? So this is extremely useful from a management standpoint, but I would recommend even a junior technical writer to go through this feature. It helps you grow, up the ladder whenever the need arises. But this is a feature that a lot of people use, probably to impress their boss, or management. So use this. It's a very extremely useful feature. There are tons of uh, sub features that I don't want to go into right now. You can play around by going and clicking on the pivot table tools. So as and when you click the pivot, you will see a pivot table tools on top. Okay, so you can go and look at these sub features. It's extremely useful. You can also generate different charts by selecting this. You can go and again click a pivot chart, and you get everything in the form of a chart format. So if you don't like numbers, you like visual format, that's also available. So this is one extremely good feature in terms of throwing out the final numbers or the summary. And I use it probably towards the end of every requirement, and it's helped me in the past. Okay. Any questions here, guys? Okay. So Rahul, can I move on to the next few sub features? It will be a little low level of explanation, but I'll just try to quickly wrap up those before I move to the actual framework.
Yeah, sure, Mohan. I think everybody's agree on that.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just highlight the remaining six features. I wouldn't call it very low features, but still something that all of you should be aware of. One is this formatting of cells. This is something extremely useful from a data standpoint, because most times you will see a lot of data uh, in different formats, right? So say for example, gross sales, right? People might want to see this in the form of a number, but let's say for example, you want to show this as a in decimal format, or if you, let's say, you want to show the sale price in decimal format, go and click on this. This is all part of your formatting. This entire uh, pane here is your formatting cells, right? So you can basically play around with a lot of features that's available here. And for example, right now I'm showing you only a decimal format. Now, obviously, I don't like to show gross sales, uh, let's say, in a date format, right? It would not be the right way of representing gross sales, but it is somehow taking these values also as a date, right? So it's very critical that you go through this feature. I've seen in a lot of cases that uh, a lot of these dates are actually converted to text format. Now I'll show you this. Now, if you notice here, initially the date was in the standard date format, right? But I went and clicked on, let's show it again. I went and clicked on this button here, and I changed it to no specific format. So what happens here is it has converted your date to a very generic text format. So that should not be the case. So if you know that you are associating a date column, ensure that it is in the correct format, right? So it is something that you can, as long as you're aware that it's a date column, stick to that particular format that you want to show it in, right? So there are various combinations. So you can play around this. You can go to the more number formats. This is the list that you can go through. There are a lot of different ways of showing numbers and values and date and time. So it's up to you on how you want to show it to the end user. Okay. So this is one feature that you should probably be investing time in. The next one is, like I said, remove duplicates. That's something I've shown you already. But end of the day, it is basically like an imposter, right? So you have a lot of these hidden values that look the same, but they're actually not. It's actually a duplicate. So it's important that you eliminate duplicates whenever you're developing some data model, because that it helps you arrive at the right summary. So based on that value, based on the data, your pivot also gets reflected correctly. Okay. So the next feature is your go-to special. I'll quickly run through this, but it's something that you may or not use it extremely consistently, but I'll just show it to you. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove all my coloring and whatnot, right? Now, let's say, for example, okay, let me pick up the estimation model. Now here I have defined all these data validations and formulas, right? So if you have a model which has a lot of data selection or formulas, and you are not sure which is the cell which has this actually, right? Which is the cell which has my data validation or my formulas, all I need to do is go and select this entire sheet, okay? Go to the home tab and click on find and select. Now here it gives you the option to select formulas, data validation, conditional formatting, comments. So you can go and click on, say for now, I've already entered a few data validation, right? So I go and click on data validation. So it's basically highlighted all my cells in the sheet that has a data validation associated to it, right? So here I can go and define whatever color I want. So this is basically like from a readability standpoint or or an end user standpoint, I'm deciding, okay, I'm informing the user what are these colors, what do these colors indicate, right? So these are all data validation, okay? So now if I want to go and select all the formulas, I click on formulas. Now it has selected this particular column that has a lot of formulas in it. So if I want to indicate this to the user, I can go and select that particular color, right? So it's important that you go through this functionality as well. There's a go to special as well. This is something that you can play around. I don't want to go too deep into this right now, but this is something you can play around, understand where to use this functionality. You can also select blanks, for example, right? Now, if you notice, I've selected the entire thing. I went and clicked on find and select, go to special and clicked on blanks. So blanks is basically all the empty cells in your worksheet. So this is something you can play around with. The next one is lock cells and protect sheet. I do this pretty much all the time at the end of my sheet. Say especially when I have a lot of formulas and data validation, and I don't want people to mess around with my sheet. I go and use this lock cells and protect sheet. So let me just show it to you visually so that you understand this better. So let's say I want all these formula related cells to be locked and protected. So all I do is I go and select the entire sheet. First step is go and select the entire sheet. I go and I right click and I select format cells. Okay. Now I go to protection tab. I unselect this checkbox. Okay, basically right now, basically Excel tells you, okay, all my cells are locked, but it's actually not locked. Okay, so I go and unselect this. Now my actual cell locking of cell starts. Let's say I want to select these formula cells and I want to lock it and no one else messes around with these formulas. I again go and right click format cells, okay, and then I lock this, okay. Or the other option is go to the home tab, sorry, not home tab, yeah, sorry, it's the home tab. Click on the format and you'll have a locked cell. So basically you're locking whatever cells you want to protect so that other users cannot fool around with. Now it doesn't stop here. You also have to protect your sheet, okay, only then it is locked. So to do that you have to right click on your tab name, you click on protect sheet and you given whatever password you want to give, right? So I click 123 just as a test. I re-enter that password, and it is locked. So anytime any user wants to play around with this, they will not be able to do it. Okay, so I'll just show it to you just from a visual standpoint. Okay. Now, the moment I type something, it says, okay, my sheet is protected. I cannot, play around with this sheet. So, if you are the user using it and you want to unprotect it, go and retype, that password. That's it. So, this is critical, when you are finalizing your overall estimation framework or whatever model that you are creating. Error checking is something I don't do too often, but towards the end of your model, you can do this. It's very simple. It's basically like a feature wherein you want to do a thorough check of your formula, similar to your spell check at the end of MS Word, right? Basically, to evaluate whether your formulas are correct or not. Okay. So to do that, you just go here. You can select the review tab, sorry, formulas tab, and you go and click on error checking. So error checking will tell you whether the formula is good enough to be circulated or good enough to be go to the next stage. So it gives you that kind of flexibility. It's not it's up to you whether you want to ignore it or get some help on this. So I would probably keep this as the last option. Okay. Text to columns is again one feature I don't use very often, but it comes handy when you're working with a lot of data across web content projects or junk data. So this is something that's available under the data tab. You can go and click on text to columns. So let's say you want to convert this particular column. You click on this. Let's say you want to differentiate channel and partners. So any space or any tab that you want to move to the next column, you can use this. There's something called the delimiter. You can probably use the space for now. And what it does is it gives you a warning saying the data is already there. Do you want to replace it? So basically, it has now converted your first column into two columns. It's converted channel into partners because the differentiator here is the space. Okay. So this is something you can play around when you have a large volume of data. I would not recommend this during creation of estimation frameworks or any model, but as and when you get a lot of junk data, that's when this feature is used. Okay. So I know we have another half an hour, so I'll probably try to run you through some of the formulas using the estimation framework that I've created. It's a very generic framework, but I also want you to let me know if I need to stop or pause, because this part is going to be a little critical in terms of what formula you use and when and where. Okay. So most of you might be knowing of the basic formulas in Excel. It's your standard sum, average, count. Concatenate is basically merging two cells, trimming, length. So these are very straightforward formulas. I'll probably show you a concatenate, trim, length if that's okay. So basically, if let's say I want to do a merging of the segment and the country. Okay, so I put a concatenate. I select the specific value. Then I put a comma. I put, let's say, an underscore or a dash. That's your differentiator. And then I select the country. So basically, it associates It basically groups two cells based on the differentiator that you're provided. It's pretty basic stuff. Uh, Trimming, length, all these things come in mostly when you are working with a large volume of data. So I'll not go too much into it. You can probably play around. So I'll go straight away to the formula that really matter from an estimation standpoint. Okay.
Hey Mohan, Ashish here.
Yeah, I actually.
Yeah, Mohan, the small query regarding pivot tables. Like in pivot, we do not have those many themes, right? Uh, you know, they arrange those many these many options. You know, you have like 4 or 5 options. Can we import or can we get some new template of pivot table from outside or something? Is there any such configuration?
No, maybe I didn't understand your question clearly. So pivot table is basically like a summary. It's basically like a
Uh,
summary, Ashish. So basically,
Correct.
what?
Yeah, correct. So I am asking about the layout. So we do not have many such layout options of for pivot, right?
No, no, no. Okay. So that's what. Like I said, it's a huge feature. You probably
Uh-huh.
have to explore it a little more. So I can show it to you quickly. So whatever I'm showing you right now, okay, it's a very basic view format. Now, if
Correct.
you want to change the way you want to see it, you go to the pivot table tab. Okay, you click on view.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to pivot table tools tab. Okay, there's something called the view. Oh, sorry, the design tab.
The design, yeah.
Yeah, you have to click on this. There are multiple ways of how you want to see your pivot. You can show it in compact format. You can show it in outline format. You can show it in tabular format. So there are multiple
Okay.
ways of viewing it, right? It all depends on how you want to see your pivot. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So there are options. You have to explore this a little in depth. It will take some time, but I'm just showing it in a very precise manner, right? Let's say I'll quickly show it to you here. I want to see country and product, right? Now, if you see the view
Yeah.
has changed little differently,
Correct.
right? So, and if you don't want to show your subtotals, you can show it in whichever format you want to see it. So
Okay.
it's just a matter of playing around with this particular feature. So I just shown you one quick snippet of it.
Thanks, Mohan, for that. And another question would be like, regarding rules and formulas. Can you please explain more about this match index function than, when we are doing, so we generally come across this H lookup and V lookup.
Hmm.
So how will, and there's differences with this match index function.
Correct, correct. Yeah, I'll just show it to you because that's what I'm coming to right now. Yeah. I'll just show it to you, Ashit, because I'll be explaining that particular feature
Yeah,
in
please,
detail. So that's where
please
a lot of
go with your flow. Just keep my points in consideration.
sure, sure. Okay. So just for the benefit of all, since I've already defined most of these data validation, I'm just going and selecting module, feature, whatever be that number. These columns don't have any dependency, right? My main dependency from a technical writing standpoint, from an estimation standpoint, right, is your, let's say, your doc impact, your whether it's a uh, new modified impact, whether what is the doc complexity level, what is the dependency from a whether it's a single impact or a multiple impact, right? So these are the critical columns that I would generally associate with any kind of framework, especially from a TW standpoint, right? So how do I define these values, right? So the main thing is having a very clear and demarcated baseline worksheet. So you are responsible as an organization or as a technical writing team to first define each and every impact type, and how much effort, how much baseline effort is required to do a simple task or a medium task or a complex task, right? So now I have defined each and every of this doc impact type, simple, medium, complex, impact, multiple impacts. Now, to get this baseline effort array into your actual task list, what you need to do is, so basically what I have done is I have distributed my new doc impact, my complexity of that doc impact, and whether it has a single or multiple impacts. So I've distributed each and every parameter thoroughly, and I've just given some random numbers here. Okay, it need not be your organization's benchmark, but this is something you can define based on your team's understanding. Okay, so what I've done is here is, if you notice, I've given, if you notice this, I've already given the name manager. I've given a doc complexity array as a name manager, my uh, impact dependency array as one unique name, and my baseline effort as one unique name. Okay, this is my way of doing things. There is a shortcut to do this, so I'll show it to you here. So what I've basically done is I've grouped all these values, not all, I've grouped new and simple as one value, new and medium as another value, and I've associated the corresponding effort. So this is a shorter way of doing things, but I prefer doing the manual way, whether it's a new impact, simple, complex model. So I've done that, right? I hope it's clear until now. So I'll show it to you how I defined it here. In the name manager, I've given a baseline effort, I've given a unique name for each of these arrays, right? So my doc impact type array is available, my doc complexity array is available, my impact dependency array is available, and my baseline doc baseline effort is available. So that's how I've designed this sheet. Okay. Now it comes to the actual task list. So basically, what happens is, I don't know about how other organizations or you are doing it. I generally try to combine my task list and my estimation in one sheet. Instead of having two different sheets, I do it in one sheet so that everything is automated and there's no room for anyone to play around with, right? So that's how I've designed a lot of sheets, and it has worked for me. So right now, if you see, this is a very detailed task list that you would probably be creating from a requirements gathering standpoint. Okay. Now, the most critical thing uh, from an estimation standpoint is your baseline effort. Okay. So now there are two ways of doing this, right? One is, like Ashish said, there's a VLOOKUP format, then there is an index formula, there's a match formula. The most recommended formula that I would use is an index and match formula. This is one of the, I would say, one of the most elegant formulas. It will take a bit of a time to understand that, but it's basically like a dependency. So these are my three dependent columns based on which my effort will be pulled up. Okay. So let's say I select my doc complexity as simple. Okay. My impact dependency is, sorry, one step back. My doc impact type is new. Okay. My doc complexity is simple. My impact dependency is single. So it's a very straightforward, simple impact, right? It has no dependency on any of the other screens or features, right? Now, how do I derive this particular formula? Okay. Right now, I already given this, but let me explain it a little bit in a very precise manner. So I'm deleting this formula for now. So using this index and match, what you need to do is you type this formula called index. Okay, start off your formula with index. Now, what are you trying to show in this column? You are trying to show the baseline effort based on selection of column G, H, and I. Okay, so I've given 3 levels, but you can decide whether if you want to eliminate column I, that's up to you. Okay, based on your estimation framework. But for now, I've given 3. Sorry, based on this value has to show up. Okay, so I type index. Now I've already defined my baseline effort using this name manager called base. What was it called? Doc impact. I think it was doc impact baseline effort. So this is the value that needs to show up first. Okay. Now after this, I put a comma. I put a match. Right. Now what am I matching? I'm matching 3 criteria here: column G, column H, and column I. That is my new simple and single impact. Okay. Now, until and unless all these 3 values match, only then my baseline effort will show up. Okay. So now I am saying I'm selecting column G. Okay. I'm select and then I put an and. So basically, it's a very simple formula. You use an and wherever you want to define that array or define that criteria. Now I do G2, I do H2. That's my doc complexity, and then I put an and I put a I2. That's my impact dependency. Now this is basically, it looks up all these 3 values. Then I put a comma. What is my array? So I have to look in 3 arrays, right? One is your doc impact type. Okay, I put that, and I put an and I put a doc complexity type, right? Complexity array. Okay, I'm sorry, I need to type array here rather than type. Then comes my doc complexity array. Then I put an and. Then I define the impact dependency. So my impact dependency array is given here. Okay. So now you have matched these 3 criteria based on the lookup value. Okay. Now I need to put a comma, and then it will give me selection criteria saying whether you want to match it exactly. So you have to type 0. Okay. You close your brackets. So now you have approximately two brackets. Okay. From an overall formula standpoint, you need to ensure that your close brackets are absolutely clean. So you have two brackets. So I put another close brackets. Now this is something I've learned over YouTube videos. Using this shortcut key called Control Shift Enter, you're basically locking. It basically it's basically like a lock formula. Okay, so I'm just going to use Control Shift Enter. Now you see there will be a curly bracket that shows up at the end of your formula. Okay, so basically what it does is it's more of a high value precision kind of enclosure rather than a standard enclosure. Now if I don't use this, okay, I just put a normal enter. It shows up a value. It shows up an error. So this is where I found this material on the YouTube. So using that, I was able to pull up the value based on one or more criterias. Okay, so this thing might take a little time to understand, but I've tried to show it to you in a very simple way. So as and when I select, let's say, modified, complex, multiple impact, so it pulls up the baseline effort. Okay, so there are multiple ways of doing this. you can all you need to do is once you define the formula, run it through one row, and then when if you are satisfied, drag it to the next rows, right? So that's how I generally go about doing things. Right now you see there's an NA. I think probably that's uh, yeah, that's because I've not selected anything right now. So once you do this, you will get the entire baseline effort in one shot. Okay, so this is how I go about doing things. Uh, the other shortcut way of doing things is if you don't like doing this entire 3 column or 2 column criteria, you can combine everything into one value, define that array. Okay, this is much more simpler, but towards the end of the day, if you want to segregate your simple, medium, complex, it's very difficult here, right? So I generally don't like to go with this option 2. Here I use a formula called Weagle lookup. It's much more simpler, but it's just like a 1:1 ratio. It doesn't go beyond that. Whereas index match, it covers how many of our criteria that you want to match, and then pull up the baseline effort, right? So I found this very useful, across the projects that I've implemented, and some of the customers are also happy with these kind of formulas getting integrated because it helped them build their own framework, right? So this is something I would recommend trying. I'll probably share the sheet with Rahul, and he can share it with you towards the end of the session. But this is something I have implemented across projects. It's worked for me, so that's why I'm showing it to you. In scenarios wherein you feel you don't want this column, it's fine. You have to decide that much upfront in the baseline uh, baseline tab, right? So this is something that you will learn over a course of time, as in when you do a lot of frameworks. But drawing this criteria is very critical. So that's what I wanted to explain. Since we have only like 15 more minutes, I thought I'll just explain this. Uh, and this is like a task list. Now using this task list, what happens is I can still pull up my estimates, right? Now I've just created a snapshot of my estimates effort. So I have my requirements gathering in the form of my task list, and I have my estimates. Now right now I've just given a very high level uh, list of DDLC stages. You can customize it based on your requirement or your organization. So right now I'm just giving some random numbers in terms of effort. Now once you develop your content task list, you know what is my overall effort in terms of tasks, right? Right now it is not showing you anything because I have not given the correct formula here. Okay, so under task list, so basically my formula goes to referring my task list. Now I have not given any clear pickup value here. So what I do is I go and right now anytime you come across this NA value, the best way to change this is instead of giving the index, I put an in if NA. Basically, it's like this. If I put an if NA, I close my brackets. Now I want to pull the overall effort of my task list, my overall effort of documentation. So it has come to 10. Okay, just highlight for your reference. And now I want to refer this automatically without manually entering this. Okay, so I go and click on this particular cell. I've just given few percentages based on review stages or project management or contingency. So I get my overall effort. So I've taken a 5% of, let's say, content development across each of these stages. So again, it's up to you on how you want to customize it. But in one shot, I can create my requirements gathering and my estimates in probably 15 to 20 minutes, provided I know what is my baseline numbers and my task is absolutely clean. So that's how I would generally go about estimating. And in some scenarios, in some projects, I've also put a schedule planning wherein everything is in one sheet. I don't need to keep going back to multiple sheets. Okay, since I think you're probably only 10 minutes away from the meeting, I'll probably add a tab in terms of instructions on how you can use this sheet for the benefit of all technical writers across organizations. So that's fine. It's a free to use sheet, and uh, yeah, that's it. I mean, I've tried to cover as much as possible in this 2 hours. Some of the other best practices, do's and don'ts, tips and tricks, I've just added a few slides. I'll share this deck with you in terms of what you can do from an overall Excel standpoint, how to use it better, and also from a leadership standpoint, right? Um, so I've just given a few best practices from a estimation standpoint. What I've noticed is a lot of people go straight to the estimation model, but they don't realize that in technical writing we work with so many different outputs, so many different scenarios, and so many documentation authoring tools, right? So it's important that if you are experienced enough, if you know your tool, if you know your scenario, if you know your requirements from customers, you can develop multiple estimation models for each documentation output or scenario or tool. So try to spend some time with your team or on your own, develop some few frameworks. It just help you, from an organization standpoint. It will also help you. Also from an individual, from an Excel standpoint, it will help you in the future. End of the day, it is not just about creating the framework. It's about how you judge between overestimation and underestimation, right? That's the biggest worry for all writers when they begin the project. So that's something you should be prepared as a leader or as a team lead in terms of differentiating that. And like I said, from a leadership standpoint, since I've worked across several roles, this is something I've seen in a lot of managers and leads. And as and when you grow up in the ladder, expectations change, right? Your KRAs, your KPIs, they all change. So you have to learn Excel as and when the situation demands. But I would say don't go until that opportunity comes. Try to learn it upfront and be prepared, because if you're smart enough in impressing your management with Excel, nothing like it, right? It doesn't see whether you're a technical writer or a developer or a tester. Excel is probably the base, right? And it's also a number game. It's not just about how many documents you've created, how many pages you've completed. It's more of a number game when you start scaling up the ladder. So that's why I thought of mentioning this slide. And also from a quality versus quantity kind of thoughts. There's always this problem statement between leaders, whether it is a quality that you need to focus on or on the quantity, right? From a technical writing or a documentation standpoint, obviously quality comes number one, right? At least in my experience, quality comes number one, quantity comes number two. So whether you write 1,000 pages or you write 10 pages, it doesn't matter. It's the quality that matters, that goes to the end user, right? So that's a clash of thoughts that I've seen across a lot of leaders. And end of the day, it's also a data point, right? People want to see data at the end of the day. When you're presenting to your customers, or you're going for multiple different presentations, documentation data points matter a lot. It basically helps in deciding a lot of other factors like your cost of development, your maintenance cost, your ROI, your editorial metrics, your productivity of writers, the risks and defects that you track, and also from the revenue standpoint or performance appraisals or content strategy. So I've listed a few high-level stuff, but typically in every organization, this is what you go through, right? But end of the day, if you are in that leadership role or in that mentoring role or somewhere wherein you have to use Excel, please try to avoid the scenario wherein you are judging a person by Excel, right? You are judging a person by not a spreadsheet, but as an employee, as a writer. So that's where I thought of adding this slide. So that's about it, guys. Rahul.
Thank you, Mohan, and everyone for the time. And really, it was a very enlightening for me as a Scrum Master. I have to now. Excel has become my primary tool. When I was a technical writer, RoboHall conference, I used to use those tools. But now when I have become a Scrum Master, I've
Right.
started using Excel tool.
Yeah,
Uh,
like I said, agile models, waterfall model doesn't really apply. I mean, if you're a Scrum Master, you still need to be using some form of data management tool. So
right.
Excel is handy. Yeah.
So although we have version one Jira, but for creating reports, sending reports to my management, to different teams, we have to use Excel, and we need to be a pro of Excel. Even I have done a course on Excel for that when I became a Scrum Master. So it was a very long-term due for me to learn Excel, and thank you for this. Today I have to also start learning, not today, but from last few days, DevOps. Just like I started taking a training on that DevOps. There also I have seen that Excel will not go from my life. Excel will be in my life. So I personally see the value of Excel now. And also, when I see many people compare with some views, so views opinion, views of any complaint without data is just a view or just an opinion, right? So you can always have a data, and Excel gives you real strength and real way to present your data in a very correct way. So we should learn Excel how to present our data. If you come with to me without any data, it's just your view or just your opinion, and probably your management will not look into it the way they should look at. This is what I have learned when I moved toward
Right.
management.
Yeah, I mean, see, there are many other tools, right? I'm not saying you have to learn only Excel. There, I mean, if you see
Okay.
Google Sheets has taken probably the
Yes.
entire features of Microsoft Excel and created a free version, right? But there is Jira, there is Confluence. There are multiple ways of tracking things. But if you look at it from a base standpoint, yeah, obviously Excel is something you can use it even for your home needs, for any kind of thing. So it's not restricted to organizations or tech, right?
And managing your personal wealth also.
Right.
Really, Excel. It's like I have to manage so many attendees, so there's everything is on Excel sheet. So I can segregate like who was from this city and who have joined or have not joined. So I have more than 50 registration for this, but as you can see, only 15 16 people joined in few talk now. Again, so I have some everything from the Excel sheet. So Excel sheet is a part of our life. And so thank you guys. Again, I want to remind you next week on Saturday we have markdown. Probably it's from 7 p.m. I will confirm that. Okay. So you will get the SMS, right? And of course, I'm updating on our WhatsApp group also.
Okay. So, Rahul, can I? How do I share this deck and some few frameworks probably for the participants?
Yeah, you can. It can be share. It can be accessed from my website. Sorry, my app. Uh,
Okay.
but I will share the link how you can do that.
Okay. Okay.
So you all have registered. So from there you can easily get it. So video will be also available. Everything will be available, right? But give me a few days to do that. All those things.
Yeah. Just wanted to check on that.
Just to the morning, from morning to 7 to 10:30. I had a class. After that, I have a few work, and then now I'm sitting here. It's a bit busy today, and tomorrow I will be again continuing busy. So give me some time. It will be available within a couple of days to everyone.
No issues.
Okay.
So just want to check if you have any questions, guys, on the call.
And yeah, guys, and a few more. Just I want to shout out to everyone. Many people are losing their job in this COVID. So my whole goal of this Information Developer Foundation is we are a not-for-profit organization. We are a foundation. Right. So our whole goal is to help others. So if you are connected with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever you are, just like WhatsApp, so please keep posting the job opening if your company have, because many I know many who have lost their job and they're looking for it. So I can reach to the correct people. Also, we are looking for good speakers who can give presentation on something new, or you are doing something new in your organization and want to share with the world. Our platform is for that. Right, it is not my individual platform, and just like you guys have to take it forward. How you want to take it forward, the way you want to, right? And we have written a lot of blogs there. If you want to share your blogs, also you can do that. You can just go and list the blog. So a lot of features are there. You explore this. We have an app also. So that app will be on your mobile. Just go and download app InfoDev from Google Store. Right. So a lot of this is InfoDev. This is the app available on Google Store. Right. So a lot of things we will doing on this app, and slowly we'll move forward completely on the app. Complete my platform will be the app. Right. So help us make a society and make a foundation where we can share knowledge and share the. Uh, just like we can help each other. That's the whole goal of this. Thank you, everyone. See you on the next week with the Markdown. The topic is learn how to create API documentation using Markdown and speaker.io. And that will use a communication that. Thank you. Any questions? Question है? You want to ask anything? Amar, Ankit, Vinitni, Ashish, Karthik?
So, yeah, Rahul and Mohan, thanks a lot. Really wonderfully explained, Mohan. Thanks for your time and the knowledge that you have shared. And we look forward to work together. And I have some ideas. Let's connect offline, and then we have something advanced or something. And in part two, we discuss something more. So look forward to that. Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks. Thank you, Ashish. Thanks, Rahul.
Okay. So I'm dropping. Bye.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohan.